Hello everyone, this is Sappy here, and I'm finally back with another video after a couple of months. This time we're going to be ranking all the operators in Stronghold Protocol 2. There are a lot of operators that we can go through, as well as their use cases, so this video will be very long. So sit tight, relax, and let's just get right into it. So a couple of disclaimers before we start. Number one, this tier list is entirely of my own opinion. There will be some biases, there will be a couple of retrospective rankings. I will make them known before I rank the operator. Number two, operator ranking will be based on a couple of criteria, namely their versatility, damage, crowd control, value generation, and stack generation. Finally, this video is recorded after Stronghold Protocol 3 on the CN server. I don't have a global account, so I don't exactly remember the finer details of certain operators, so do keep that in mind. With that out of the way, let's get right into the tier explanation. Starting off in S tier, operators in this tier are almost always a must pick in every situation. They either do a lot of damage, or they provide a lot of CC, or they just do both. And they either generate a lot of value, or they provide a lot of stacks very quickly. Next up, A tier. Operators in this tier are fairly similar to the ones in S, but weaker in almost every regard. They are either a little bit more inconsistent, or they require a lot more work just to get online compared to the ones in S tier. Next up, we have the situational tiers. Operators in these tiers are really only usable within their own teams, or whether or not the current situation needs you to pick them. In the situational good tier, operators in the situational good tier are really important to the teams that they are in, simply because they provide either a lot of stack generation or they provide a lot of value, or they are used in more situations than the ones in the niche tier. While the ones in the niche tier are a little bit similar to the ones in A tier, where they provide a lot less, but they also need a lot more stuff like high amounts of agile stacks or high amounts of swift stacks in order to get online. Or just the fact that most of the time they are not really that valuable to pick. Finally, the absolute trash tier, you know what it means. Operators in this tier are almost never going to be picked unless you really need them for a certain situation. Anyways, with that out of the way, let's get right into the tier 1 shop units. In the tier 1 shop, you are mainly picking operators based on what you currently need. Whether that be for damage or for blocking, the tier 1 operators are mainly there just to carry you through the early rounds. That being said, there are certain operators that are much more valuable in the later rounds than others. So let's get right into it. Starting off with Mei. She goes in S tier. Mei is probably one of the best operators that you could pick in the tier 1 shop. Largely because of her synergy with Warframe and Cruise Alter with skill 1. She also has some respectable damage to boot and also a little bit of crowd control. But otherwise, she's also very versatile, as there's basically no situation where during the early rounds where you won't pick Mei over literally any other character. Next up, Caper. She goes into A tier. While not as good as Mei in terms of the stack generation, Caper does in fact provide a lot of damage, especially for a tier 1 unit. Largely because of the fact that she has the precision tag, which you can activate very early thanks to. As for skills, you can run either skill 1 for synergy with Warframe and also Cruise Alter, but personally I prefer skill 2 a lot more, as it allows Caper to basically handle even high defense enemies, especially when a skill is activated. Next up, Korea goes into situational niche. He's mainly picked for his survivability, but even then, he's not really the most tankiest of operators, especially in the tier 1 shop. He's also just mostly there just to activate K-Drag if you still need to. Next up, Korra. Also goes in situational niche. Korra suffers almost the exact same problems that Courier has. She's mainly picked just to block enemies and also for a high defense. But even then, Korra's defense isn't really that high. Mainly because of the fact that she's stuck in tier 1. Otherwise, if you need a blocker, Korra is just significantly better than Courier if you need that. Next up, Manticore. She goes into A tier. Even though that Manticore only has the Sargon tag, the main draw to Manticore is that her crowd control and also her damage is quite good as well, even for a tier 1 unit. Her ability isn't really that interesting, it's just increased SP regen, which does mean that you will want to use skill 2 more, thanks to the fact that skill 2 can stun enemies. But if you want one skill 1, it is also fine. You're not really losing out a whole lot, regardless of which skill that you're picking. Next up, Insider. He goes in situation good. Even though that he only has the Laterano tag, the main reason why Insider goes into situation good is literally because of the fact that he's your main way of generating Laterano stacks, especially during the early game, as he's basically the only operator with the bullet mechanic for tier 1 to tier 4. Next up, Gitano. If you're just talking about her combat abilities, she goes in situational niche. Her skills aren't really that impressive, even though that AoE is so much better in Stronghold Protocol than in many other game modes. But her tags, Foresight and Marvel, just puts her up into situational good. Being able to get +2 stacks to Foresight and Marvel every time that you obtain her isn't really that important during the early game, but once you're in the late game where you have about like 180 stacks or is it 100 stacks of Foresight, and also if you have the Investor tag activated, Gitano will provide a lot more stacks to both Foresight and Marvel, especially during the late game, and if you can't find her in the shop. That's why she goes into situational good. Next up, Lazy. She also goes in situational good. The main reason being is that her damage is surprisingly really good. On top of the fact that because she's a chain caster, she can do a little bit of amounts of slow. That puts her up very high. The only reason why she is in A tier though is that she's really only usable in teams. That's why she goes into situational good. Next up, Pudding. Just like Lazy, she goes into situational good. Pudding is very similar to Lazy in almost every single way. The only difference is that she can give stacks to the Agile tag, but I wouldn't recommend grabbing Pudding just to get stacks for the Agile tag, as many of the middle game to late game operators just outpaces her stack generation even if you have the Investor tag. Next up, Lapland. Lapland goes in as tier largely because of two simple reasons. The first being that silence is very good. You are not always guaranteed the 3-man buff for precision where range operators can silence enemies, so Lapland is here to help alleviate that. The other reason is that her damage is very high even for a tier 1 unit. Her ability helps her out a whole lot as she converts all damage into weakness damage, so she can handle both high defense and high res enemies at the same time. So her being a 2 blocker while also being able to do a lot of damage just puts her leagues above all the other melee operators in the same shop tier. Next up, Spectre. She goes into absolute trash. Spectre is by far the worst unit that you could pick in the tier 1 shop. She has by far the worst damage and survivability in comparison to all the other tier 1 shop operators. The only time where you will ever pick Spectre is that if you're trying to go for the Aegir team. and that's really it. And to rub more salt into her wounds, her skill picks are not really that great either. You're really only able to use skill 1 as it has the least amount of downsides of her 2 skills. And skill 2. Where do I even begin with a disaster of a skill? First off, for a skill that's all about using it at the right time, not being able to do that already hurts it a lot. The uptime of this skill is way too short for it to be even remotely good, and the stun that happens afterwards is by far the worst thing to ever happen. The stun just makes it so that it's way too easy to leak enemies that you shouldn't leak in the first place. And finally, the fact that her skill 2 has anti-synergy with her ability is really, really bad, given the fact that she wants to be taken out as many times as she can. And the fact that she doesn't have the resilient tag while her alta does is very, very curious. So anyways, that's why she goes into the trash tier. Moving on, Texas. She goes in situational niche. Despite having the same ability as Lapland, the majority of Texas's skill comes from skill 2, which isn't really that great when it happens like once a round. Don't get me wrong here, the stun is absolutely great, and can even come in clutch at times. But majority of the time, her skill is just like her tag, where it just exists for the majority of the games. Next up, Savage. She also goes into the situational good tier. Savage is basically what Spectre wants to be. Good consistent damage thanks to skill 1, and also having decent amount of defense and versatility thanks to her having the A tag. The reason why Savage doesn't go into A tier is simply because her damage just isn't good enough to be put up there. I talked about the fact that you want to be using skill 1 for the consistent damage, and that's also just because skill 1 just generally outpaces skill 2 in the long run. Finally, her ability of giving you +1 gold for the next round wherever you sell her is more of a luxury than anything. If you have the extra money to burn, then by all means go ahead and do it, but otherwise I don't recommend it. As for where or not should you be upgrading Savage, it ultimately depends on your current shop tier and how long are you going to be deploying her. If upgrading Savage will give you a tier 4 or a tier 5 unit, then by all means go ahead, but otherwise I would just recommend that you buy and sell her immediately. Finally, to cap off the tier 1 shop, we have Vigna. She goes into situational good. Vigna's main strength is that she costs 1 gold, so that means that during round 2, you can upgrade the shop while also getting her at the same time. This also just means that during every other round, you could have the potential to get 1 or 2 more extra operators thanks to Vigna costing 1 gold. But if that's all that she had, then she wouldn't be in situational good. But her damage is surprisingly very good, especially if her skill is active. It's high enough where she can handle high defense enemies, so that's why she goes into situational good. And with that, that's finding all the tier 1 shop operators. Just remember that the majority of these operators are here just to fulfill certain roles or to get you through the early rounds. With the exception of like Mei and Manticore, who are very important to their own teams. And with that, let's finally get into the tier 2 shop. Alright, welcome to the tier 2 shop. Similar to tier 1, you are still picking operators based on what you currently need. It's still way too early to start picking out like what sort of build that you should go for, but if you already have a certain build in mind, then you should pick operators based on that build. To kickstart the tier 2 ranking, let's talk about the 4 potential healers that you could get in the tier 2 shop. Starting off with Papyrus, she goes in the S tier. She is by far the best healer that you could get in the tier 2 shop. Having ludicrous amounts of AoE healing thanks to her synergy with the precision tag, she's by far the best general healer during the mid game and a very important Sargon member during the late game. As for skills, you're mainly using skill 1 as she's able to both activate the Sargon's buff and also activate her own ability at the same time. Skill 1 also has the additional perk of making the Steam Knight's boss fight a little bit more manageable. There are basically no downsides to picking Papyrus at all, even if you're not trying to go for Sargon during the late game. So that's why she goes into S tier. Alright, up next, Ceylon. She goes into situational good. There's not much to really talk about Ceylon other than the fact that she's a very good general healer if you cannot find Papyrus or Silence. Her healing is quite average, but her main perk is that her stack generation during the early game is surprisingly good if you can get the 8 tag activated. One small note on how to utilize the 8 tag is not treat it as your main way or even your secondary way of building stacks for your main tag in the early game. You should always try to use it as a secondary method to start building stacks for any of your sub tags, at least during the early game. Next up, we have Herald. He goes into situational niche. Admittedly, Herald is the weakest of the 4 healers. Even if you consider the precision tag, he's still by far the weakest of the 4. His main problem is just that he has a hard time keeping up with the heals. Even though that he's a wandering medic, which I highly value in the late game, especially if you're up against the corrosion boss or the abyssal flower, but his early game is way too weak for him to be considered picking a lot of times. That being said, he does have a very slight use case thanks to his ability of, when obtained, giving you +1 or +2 gold during the next round. This is very similar to Savage as it requires you to have the extra money to spare. But this does in fact get buffed if you have the Investor tag activated. But otherwise, unlike Savage, Herald just doesn't have the same amount of deployment value. Next up, Silence is situational good. She's very similar to Ceylon in pretty much every single way, even down to her healing and also stack generation. The only difference between the two is that Silence has AoE heal thanks to her drone and also the fact that she provides stacks for Foresight. You can make the argument that Silence might be better than Ceylon thanks to her having the Foresight tag and can generate stacks for it. But my counter argument against that is that her stack generation is way too slow, especially if you compare it to like Investor tag Chitano or even just an Enos. You can in fact make the combo of Ceylon plus Silence, in which case you do you. I haven't done that before, but if it works, then just let me know in the comments. Next up, Irene. He goes into situational niche. A very forgettable operator, especially in this game mode. He just gets outclassed by everyone in the same shop tier and the ones below him. Having only the lateral tag and also having an ability that just does more damage to drones really makes him undesirable. There's basically like no reason to ever pick Irene unless you are trying to activate the lateral tag. Anyways, after such a disappointment of a unit, let's talk about Execure. He goes into situational good. The main draw to Execure is that he can easily activate the 3-man buff of Precision very early. And Precision is, already very broken in this current season. But outside of Precision shenanigans, he doesn't really have anything else going for him. He requires Insider just to build stacks for Laterano, and he doesn't generate any stacks of precision by himself. He's really only usable in locked around teams, and outside of that, he's just there to activate the precision tag, which makes him very easily replaceable. I will put him a tier lower, but because of the fact that he can activate the 3-man buff of precision very quickly, like as soon as round 3, that is enough to put him into situational good. Next up, Gravel. She goes into situational niche. I'm just gonna get this one out of the way. Every single character that has the raid tag besides Ines and Vulpes are always going to be placed into situational niche or lower. And that's just simply because raid tag just isn't really that good in the current season. There's 2 maps that basically hard counter it. Its existence relies on whether or not you have the resilient tag built. And there just isn't enough operators to really utilize the raid tag as well. So any raid operator that doesn't go into absolute trash at least has something else going for them. In which case, for Gravel, she can build stacks for resilient, and that is basically enough to put her into situational niche. If you are trying to build stacks for resilient using Gravel, then I would recommend that you use skill 1 over skill 2, as it's a lot easier to activate her ability, which requires her to be taken out as many times as you can. Next up, Heavy Rain. She goes into situational niche. There really isn't a whole lot to talk about Heavy Rain other than the fact that she has high defense and also the fact that she has the Fortress tag, which is very good because the 3-man buff for Fortress is heavily underrated, especially during the early to mid game. But other than that, her skills are not really that interesting. Her heals aren't strong enough to really keep up the damage, and the camouflage isn't long enough to protect any of your ranged units. If you are trying to build for the Sargon team, then she's a very good magnet for the corrosion boss, and that's really all there is to say about her. Moving on, we have Kazemaru. She goes into the A tier. She really only does one thing, and she does that one thing really well. And that's just the fact that she has disgustingly high damage. Even an unupgraded Kazemaru can still handle some of the high defense enemies. And don't even get me started on if you do decide to upgrade her, which can be easily done thanks to the fact that you only need 1 extra copy of her. A couple other things to know about Kazemaru is that her defense is surprisingly really good, even sometimes on par with some of the defenders in the same shop tier or the ones above her. She's basically a must pick, especially during the early rounds thanks to her high damage. But other than that, the only reason why I didn't put her into S tier is that if you don't find her at like about round 4 at the latest, or maybe even round 5, then her value significantly decreases by a lot. So that's why I'm putting her into A tier. Next up, Matterhorn. He goes into situational niche. Matterhorn is very similar to Heavy Rain in almost every single situation. They both have high defense, and they both have the Fortress tag. The only couple of differences between the both of them is that one is for Sargon while the other is for K-Drag, and also the fact that Matterhorn can give some stacks to both K-Drag and Fortress whenever you obtain him. Although, one thing to note is that Heavy Rain's defense is significantly better than Matterhorn, especially during the late game, given the fact that Heavy Rain does have the ability to increase her own defense, while Matterhorn doesn't. That being said, they both basically serve the purpose during the early to mid game as a defender and also to activate their own respective main tags, and also for the Fortress tag as well. Alright, next up, Rock Squared, she goes into A tier. Before we talk about her main thing, let's just talk about her combat capabilities first. Rock's damage is surprisingly really good, even if you consider or don't consider the precision tag. But most of that damage comes from her overclocking on skill 2. She also does have the agile tag, which does in fact increases her value a little bit more. Now, let's talk about her main thing. When obtained, she will give you 1 or 2 random equipment from the list of equipment that you see on screen right now. The main thing you are looking from Rock is basically just the Fire Hammer. Everything else, while does have good value, it just pales in comparison to the amount of value that the Fire Hammer can give you, as it basically makes Blaze Alter a extremely good DPS option, and also just makes any other character that can do arts damage also a really good secondary DPS as well. The real question is, how long or how many times should you be gambling on Rock? My answer to that is basically the same as Savage and Herald, where it really depends on, do you have the extra money to spare? Obviously, while the Fire Hammer has the most value, it is not the be all and end all of all the equipments that Rock can give you, as the attack speed, the Immortality Hammer, and also the Arts Res, and also like the Res Ignore equipment are all also equally good options as well. But just the fact that she can also give you really bad equipment does in fact make her a little bit inconsistent and puts her into A tier. Next up, Tin Man. He goes into situational niche tier. Don't get me wrong, Tin Man is really good. You can maybe even make the argument that he should go into situational good, but my problem with Tin Man is just the fact that his stack generation is way too slow, and also just the fact that he gets power crept by basically all the other good agile stack generation, as well as all the swift stack generators. His skills are really good. You can run your skill 1 or skill 2. Personally, I prefer skill 2 a lot more thanks to the fact that it provides healing. But his stack generation, giving you +2 at the start of every round, just isn't enough. Especially given the fact that for Swift tag, +2 is peanuts, given the fact that you need like about 150 of it just to be consistent. Anyhow, next up, Underflow. She goes into situational niche tier. Underflow basically suffers the same exact problems that Irene has. She's pretty forgettable, she only has the Aegir tag, and her ability only does increased damage against Seaborn enemies. The only reason why that Underflow doesn't go into the same tier as Spectre is just the fact that Underflow is much better than Spectre in every single regard. She has very good defense, her offense is also really good as well, and her amount of utilities that she has is really high, even for a tier 2 unit. She can slow, she can do arts damage, and she can even hit air units at the same time. She has like all these really good things, but she still lands into situational niche tier, largely because of the fact that there's so many better options than her, and also the fact that she only has the Aegir tag as well, which holds her back way too much. Next up, Utage. She goes into situational niche. Not much to really talk about her other than the fact that she has poor damage, but the A tag basically keeps her away from being absolute trash. Finally, we have Wan Ting. He goes into situational niche. Although he is very important to the Yen team, as he's your main way of just generating Yen stacks, especially until you find Lin, there are a couple of things that really hold him back. The fact that he doesn't have a secondary tag already holds him back a whole lot. He doesn't even need to be able to generate stacks for it. If he had a secondary tag, then he would be a little bit better. And the other problem is that he's just there as your Yen stack generator. He doesn't really do anything else. His heals are not that great, and you don't need DP generation in this game mode. Alright, that's finding all the operators in the Tier 2 shop. Before we get into the Tier 3 shop, there are a couple of things I want to talk about Tier 2. The majority of the Tier 2 units are really just outclassed by the operators either above or just below them in terms of like damage, stack generation, or even like utility. A lot of them are just not really that great of picks, and the reason for that is just the fact that you really only spend like half a round in the Tier 2 shop before you just immediately get access to any of the Tier 3 units. Anyways, enough rambling, let's get right into the Tier 3 shop. Alright, welcome to the Tier 3 shop. And at this point in the game, you are starting to think about what sort of team that you are trying to build for, although it is not final yet. Or just the fact that you are trying to solidify whatever your current team is so that you have a much easier time of building your main team during the later rounds. Just kickstart Tier 3, let's start by talking about Ethan. He straight away just goes into S tier. No arguments. If you find an Ethan in the shop, there's no reason why you shouldn't pick him. The fact that you are able to manipulate whichever tag that currently has the most stacks is absolutely crazy. And it doesn't even matter if Ethan gives you a low value operator, as this basically means that you can always sell that operator for extra gold, or you can save it up just so that you can upgrade them in the future, which in turn it can give you a much higher value operator in return. All this, and we still haven't talked about the fact that his value immensely increases if you have the investor tag activated or if you have the merchant's bag, which is very crazy for a Tier 3 unit, and we still haven't even talked about his combat capabilities. Ethan may not hit like a truck, but his damage is very good even during the mid game, and even if you don't need his damage, the fact that he's able to bind enemies for so long just also puts him up way higher than basically every single other unit in the entire game mode. As for his skills, you can run skill 1 to have a much easier time against the Ling enemies, but personally I run skill 2 a lot more thanks to the fact that the bind is just way too strong. Ethan just breaks the entire value economy while also bringing good damage and great crowd control at the same time. That's why he's the second best operator in the entire game mode. That's right, second. I think there's someone else who is much better than Ethan, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Anyways, after talking about one of the best operators in the game mode, let's talk about one of the worst ones, Andrea. She is, in my opinion, the worst operator that you could ever pick in the game mode. There's a lot of problems I have with this lady, and let's just start by talking about her tags first. First off, she has the Aegir tag, which if you couldn't already tell, I am not a big fan of Aegir teams, as they have a much harder time of pulling their own weight during boss fights. The other reason is that Aegir teams don't have great secondary tags. They only have Swift, Precision, Raid, Fortress, and Resilient. Of the 5 tags, only Resilient is the one that has the most synergy with the Aegir team. All the other tags only have synergy with their own operator. In Andrea's case, she has the Precision tag, which While great on paper because precision is busted, Andrea is the only operator in the Aegir team that's able to benefit from it. Don't even get me started on Sculptor, as she's not a viable target for precision. And that's only just her tags. Her ability is even worse, as it just does increase damage against seaborne targets, which isn't that great. You want, at this point in the game, you want operators that can build stacks for their own tags, or just anything else. The fact that Andrea isn't able to do that already puts her down by a whole lot. Finally, her damage and skills are just straight up terrible. You're really only able to use skill 1, as the restriction with skill 2 will cause more leaks than normal. The only time where Andrea's really only used is if you're up against drones, or if you're using her as the food buff for all your other Aegir operators. That's really all she is there for. Everything else about her is just bad. Alright, after a disaster of their unit, let's talk about Aurora. She goes into situational niche. There's not really a whole lot to talk about Aurora, other than the fact that she does very good damage and can activate the K-Drug tag. Other than that, being block 1 and not being able to generate any stacks for K-Drug is also pretty bad. One small thing to note is that her high damage might be a double-edged sword for K-Drug teams, as you want to freeze enemies repeatedly, and with Aurora, you might not be able to do that due to her high damage. Next up, Enforcer. He goes into absolute trash. This might be a retrospective ranking, as in the next season, Archetto just straight up clears him. So he might actually go up into situational niche for this season, but for now, I'm gonna put it in trash tier. The main thing I really dislike about Enforcer is that his stack generation is really bad. At the end of every round, he'll give you plus 3 stacks depending on whatever tag that he currently has, and also depending on whatever tags the operator behind him has. The main issue is that he doesn't have a secondary tag. He's really only usable in lateral teams, but even then, he's still not that great because he can only give you plus 6 at the end of every round, as opposed to like literally every other lateral operator, they can give you like plus 10 or even plus 20 or more every single round. So he's not a great option either. There are a couple more issues that I have with him, namely that he's a very clunky operator to use. Depending on the map and depending on who he's targeting, he can straight up just not do anything, or he can just straight up compromise your own positioning, which isn't that great. The other problem that I have with him is that he's not even a good deployed operator as well. His pushback with his skills isn't strong enough to really stall the enemy, so for all those reasons, I think he just goes into absolute trash. Going from one angel to another, let's talk about Exu. Depending on your skills, she can either go into situational good or she can go into A tier, which I'm putting her in A tier. If you are using skill tree, then you are using her as a secondary DPS option, which isn't surprising because the precision tag exists. But if you're like me and you are using skill 1 to pair up with Warfarin or Cruise Altar, then she becomes a secondary stack generator for Lateral and Marvel, or for the precision tag. She also has the ability of, when obtained, giving you 1 extra gold for the next round, which does very slightly increases her value if you have the investor tag activated. Alright, next up, Heidi. She's the definition of a situational good operator. She's the most important operator in Victoria teams, while also having some uses outside of it thanks to the fact that she has the 8 tag. The main reason why that Heidi is so important to Victoria teams largely stems from the fact that her stack generation is very, very good. At the end of every round, for every different tier of Victoria operators deployed, she'll give you +2 or +4 stacks to Victoria. This one ability alone makes her the operator to prioritize for if you're trying to go for Victoria teams. I'll even go as far as say, if you cannot find her by the end of round 7 or 8, I would straight recommend that you don't try to go for Victoria at all. Unless if you have May, Warfarin, and Bagpipe or Siege Altar by the end of round 8, then you could still try to go for Victoria teams, but otherwise don't. As for skills, you can run either skill 1 or skill 2, it's a matter of preference. I prefer skill 2 a lot more as it increases everyone's survivability and also increases everyone's block count as well. Alright, next up, Honeyberry. She goes into situational niche. Again, I'm biased for Wandering Megs as healing elemental damage is very important. But otherwise, she doesn't really have anything else going for her. Her ability of when obtained giving you +3 stacks to a random tag it's whatever, nothing much to say about it. And just like every other operator with the when obtained restriction, her value does increase by a little bit if you have the invest attack activated. Next up, Keijara. She goes into situational good. Not much to really talk about her other than the fact that she's decently important to Keijara teams while also being able to do decent damage as well. But the main thing that you are grabbing Keijara for is just for the fact that she can give you Keijara Ice, and that's really all there is to it. Next up, Mechanist. He goes into A tier. There's a lot of things that Mechanist has going for him, namely the fact that he has both the Sargon tag and also the Agile tag, while also having a short SP cost thanks to skill 2. So he's already a good target for both Warfarin and Cruise Altar. Not only that, he also has decent damage, which isn't surprising because the precision tag exists. He also just costs 1 gold, just like Vagueness, so he can save you a little bit of money here and there. But overall, you can never really go wrong if you pick Mechanist. Unfortunately, the same thing can't be said about Philae, who goes into situational niche. Despite being a decent defender, she's really only able to be used in Sargon teams. But even then, I don't think that her defense is necessarily that good either. I don't really know why, but Philae just gets taken out way too easily when compared to every other defender, which is a big problem given the fact that her skill 2 takes a while to charge up, and it also ties back to the fact that her ability requires her to activate her skill. Even though the necrosis damage from skill 2 is very good, the fact that it takes so long to charge up, it's just such a big detriment to her. Anyways, next up, Scotty. She goes into situational niche tier, which isn't surprising because she has the raid tag. Unlike Andrea, Scotty actually has a lot more uses thanks to the fact that she has the Fortress tag and she's also able to generate stacks for all her tags. She also just has much better stacks than Andrea as well, but otherwise, Raid sucks, Aegir sucks, Fortress is decent depending on the situation, but all in all, she's still niche. Alright, next up, Snow Hunter. She goes into A tier. While she isn't able to generate as much stacks as Mechanist, she more than makes up for it in her damage, which is absurdly high for a tier 3 unit. Seriously, her damage is high enough where she's able to handle even some of the high defense enemies. But otherwise, her SP cost with skill 2 does leave a whole lot to be desired. Also, if you're wondering why I put Snow Hunter that much higher than Aurora, despite the fact that both of them basically serve the same purpose in Kirijoa teams, is mainly the fact that Snow Hunter has the precision tag, so she's able to be used a lot more outside of Kirijoa. Alright, before we talk about Swire Alter, let's first talk about Waifu first, because Swire Alter has a lot more things to talk about. Waifu goes into absolute trash. I don't think I've ever picked Waifu outside of trying to activate the Yen tag or activating the Resilient tag. She really just doesn't do anything. Her damage isn't that great, her skills aren't that great, and her ability of giving you plus 3 stacks to the highest tag when obtained also isn't that great, even if you factor in the fact that you have the invest tag activated. You know, it's kind of funny how Waifu just doesn't even have like anything going for her. Like everyone else in the same tier as her, even despite that they have a lot of flaws, they all still have some usages. Meanwhile, Waifu just does nothing. She just really does nothing, which is kind of funny. Anyways, saving the best for last, we have Swire Alter, who is a very hard operator to rank, largely because of the fact that she has a very unique ability, while also having one of the more interesting tags to talk about. In my opinion, Swire Alter goes into A tier. Some people might rank her a lot lower, maybe even like situation niche or situation good, but I have a couple of reasons why I put her into A tier. Let's first talk about her skills, as it's the much more easier things to talk about. For skills, you are mainly using skill 1 or skill 2, please do not use skill 3, as for some reason Y is bugged, where she isn't able to unload all her ammo with skill 3. If you're using skill 1, you are turning her into a pseudo medic, which is good given the fact that her healing is actually really high, but it's only able to be applied to the operators around her. But personally, I'm much of bigger fan of skill 2, as you don't need healing if everything else is dead. That's all there is to say about skill 2. Also, one more thing to note about skill 2 is that for some reason Y is a little bit janky, as Swire Alter would just waste ammo if there's a defeated operator in her range. Now then, let's talk about the main thing about Swire Alter, namely her investor tag and also her unique ability, in a way. She's the first operator to have the investor tag, in which you need 3 out of the 4 operators that have the investor tag, namely Swire Alter, Mountain, which is in tier 4, and then Silver Ash and Jessica Alter, who are in tier 5. The main question is, should you try to activate the investor tag? My answer to that is a 100% yes. You should always try to activate the investor tag whenever possible, as long as it isn't banned. The amount of value that a activated investor tag can give is extremely high, given the fact that there's a lot of operators that have very good when obtained effects, namely Ethan, Rock, Exu and Exu Alter, Gitano, and Kirijoa. Everyone else is decent at best when you have the investor tag activated, but all the aforementioned operators, their value increases by a whole lot if you have the investor tag activated. You don't need to get to 70 stacks with investor. As long as you activate it early enough, it will give you more than enough value throughout the entire game. Which leads right into ability, where I haven't really talked about it, but any operator that has the during combat, start of round, or end of round ability restriction, all of them must be deployed in order for that ability to trigger, unless stated otherwise, which is basically Swire Alter's ability, where at the end of the round, she'll give you +1 or +2 gold for the next round. And this ability can activate as long as you have the yen tag activated or if you have the investor tag activated. This one line where her ability is able to trigger as long as you have one of the aforementioned tags activated is enough to put her into A tier in my opinion. There's also the fact that if you have the extra deployment slots, you should always try to deploy Swire Altar as the +1 or +2 extra gold can be very helpful. That being said, if deploying Swire Altar means that you're going to be leaking 8 to 10 enemies, I do not recommend that you do this because at that point you are sacrificing way too much HP for a measly gain at that point. And with that very long explanation for Swire Altar, we are finally at the end of the Tier 3 shop. As a friendly reminder for the Tier 3, you are picking operators based on your final team. However, it is still early enough where depending on your luck, you can still pivot to other teams. And with that, let's get right into the Tier 4 shop. Alright, we are finally in the Tier 4 shop, which means that we are now entering the mid game. In Tier 4, you are in the process of finalizing your builds and starting to build stacks for them. Or you're just bolstering whatever defenses that you currently have just so that you have the opportunity to pivot into whatever build that you want in the later rounds. Starting off in Tier 4, we're going to be talking about Warfrin, who is basically the best operator in the entire game mode. So good in fact, I will even say that she goes into a tier of her own. The GOAT tier. Warfrin basically breaks the entire game mode and she is the entire meta. Everything about every single operator revolves around her. So what makes her exactly so good? Her ability of during combat, whenever the operator in front of her activates their skill, they will gain +1 stack to whatever tags they currently have. This one ability alone just makes her extremely busted and makes her extremely useful in every situation. Any operator that has a very spammable skill while also having a very good secondary tag instantly becomes very good as they are able to synergize with Warfrin. Do keep in mind that she does have a cap of 10 stacks or 20 stacks per round, so if you find Warfrin extremely late in the game, then I would not recommend that you grab her, but otherwise, she's still a very good option. Not to mention that her heals are also really good as well, as it is very likely for you to have precision or agile tag activated or you have both of them activate at the same time. So Warfrin by herself is able to heal up your entire team. So that already makes her extremely busted too. One thing to note is that her ability is able to synergize with Silverlight Interna as long as both of them are facing the same operator. But the TLDR is that Warfrin just breaks the entire meta. You're able to just go into whatever build that you want with her. So that's why she goes into a tier of her own. Next up, Asajin. I'm a little bit biased here, I'm putting her in A tier. To start, let's talk about what I like about Asajin. She's extremely cute, so that in of itself is enough to put her into A tier. But the other reason is that her damage is extremely good as well. If you have played the very first iteration of Stronghold Protocol, you would know what I mean, as she's extremely busted in the first iteration as her damage is also very good over there. And currently in this season, her damage is even better because of the fact that precision tag and also the agile tag exists. So that's what she has going for her. Her downsides are something I haven't really talked about yet, as it wasn't really relevant before until now. Operator tags and tags banned. She only has the Marvel tag, and she isn't able to generate any stacks for any other tags. The only time you would even grab her, let alone deploy her, is to activate her ability, which is the same as Strider Altars, which gives you 1 extra gold for the next round, minus the fact that Asajin must be deployed in order to activate this ability. The larger problem that Asajin has is that whenever the Marvel tag is banned, both her and Warframe are banned at the same time, so her availability already is lowered by a whole lot. But the other issue is that she has the same problem that Underflow has, and that is opportunity cost. At this point in the game, you are trying to activate the 6-man buff for whatever your main faction is, while also trying to build as much stacks as you can for whatever secondary tag that you currently have. Asajin just has a very hard time of fitting into any of your teams as she only has the Marvel tag. The only thing that Asajin really has over Strider Altar is that you are not losing out on a lot of damage as she's able to have access to the 3-man buff of Precision, which I already said that her damage is extremely good. But otherwise, her inability of be put into any team while also only having the Marvel tag just holds her back by a whole lot. But anyways, because I'm biased for her, I'm still putting her into A tier. Alright, after talking about one of my favorite operators in the game, let's talk about Bagpipe. She unfortunately goes into situational good. I really wish that Bagpipe went into A tier, but she has a little bit too much problems that prevent her from going into A tier. Let's first talk about her positives. She's one of the few operators alongside with Scotty and Silver Ash that has 3 different tags, namely Victoria, Foresight, and Resilient. Even though that one of them is kinda meh, it's still pretty good, as she's able to generate stacks for all 3 of those tags. Her stack generation is really good. You can run skill 2 with her to synergize with Warframe, but personally I don't do this as Warframe already has Mei as her other target. But even outside of Warframe synergy, her stack generation alone is also really good. She's able to give you at maximum +6 or +12 every round. This is really good for a tier 4 unit, but the problem that Bagpipe has is that the conditions in order for her to generate those stacks is really bad. The TLDR here is that she needs to kill enemies in order for her to generate those stacks. And here comes the problem. Unless you are playing Victoria, it is very unlikely for Bagpipe to get those kills. Because outside of Victoria teams, Bagpipe isn't able to do any damage. And even then, it is very likely for Bagpipe to have her kills stolen, which isn't something I think I would say in the big 2026 as I haven't played a shooter in decades. But I digress. Bagpipe's stack generation is extremely good, but that only happens if you are playing Victoria. Alright, going from one Victorian operator to the next, let's talk about Blaze. Blaze is a very hard operator to rank. But first, let's just talk about her combat abilities, which are absolute trash. None of Blaze's skills are even remotely good, and her survivability is not that great as well. So that's all there is to talk about her combat abilities. Now let's talk about the more interesting aspect about Blaze. Her ability. When sold, she will give you 1 copy of Blaze Altar. This one ability alone just puts her into a very strange dichotomy where Blaze is really bad and you should never deploy her, but Blaze Altar is really good, and the fact that you are able to get her extremely early just makes Blaze a very hard operator to rank. which is why I will put her into a tier of her own. The Blaze tier, where I just don't know how to rank her. One more thing to talk about Blaze is whether or not should you buy and sell her immediately, or should you upgrade her first then sell her. The TLDR here is that you should always buy and sell Blaze immediately. Even the map supports it, as you are spending 9 gold to get 3 gold back, and you are also getting an upgraded version of Blaze Altar, which is a significantly better unit, as well as a random operator of a higher tier. As opposed to spending 9 gold and getting 1 gold back, as well as getting an upgrade version of a useless operator while also getting 2 copies of Blaze Altar, as well as 1 random operator of a higher tier. Alright, next up, Eunectus. She goes into situational niche. Unlike Kejra, the equipment that Eunectus gives you isn't really that great. It just gives you increased initial SP and that's it. And the fact that she doesn't have a secondary tag as well also hurts her a lot. The main thing that Eunectus has going for her are that her skill 2 and skill 3 are really good. Skill 2 does allow her permanent stun, while skill 3 makes her a complete tank, which is great. And one small thing to note about Eunectus is that the equipment that she gives actually does circumvent both hers and Philae's issue, where they need a little bit more time just to activate their skills. Alright, next up, Fiametta. She unfortunately goes into absolute trash. She's basically what happens if you don't give Executor a secondary tag. You still need Insider in order for both her and Executor to even remotely generate any stacks, and her damage is also just really bad. None of her skills even feel remotely good to use at all, and her stack generation is unfortunately not great as well, especially if you have an upgraded Executor, which is probably the one that you're going to be using a lot more as he has the precision tag. Next up, Falnik. She goes into situational niche. While you can deploy Falnik for the A tag and also for the haha funny harm assist, Falnik is just a upgraded version of Savage, but with less reasons to be deployed. She'll give you 2 gold for the next round whenever you sell her, but again, similar to Savage, only do this if you have the money to burn. Next up, Cruise Altar. She easily goes into S tier. A very easy summary to do about Cruise Altar is just that she's Warfarin, but only for precision, and that's really all you need to know about her. Moving on, Ines. She easily goes into A tier. Despite having the rate tag, Ines is hard carried by the fact that she has the Foresight tag and she has a very spammable skill with skill 1. That's all you really need to know about her. She also has the Invis Reveal talent, so that already makes her a little bit more useful in terms of her utility. If for some reason why you want to utilize the rate tag, then you are using skill 2 or skill 3, but then again, why are you doing it in the first place? Wait until the next season where she's significantly stronger there. Next up, Leonhard. He easily goes into A tier. Leonhard is basically an easy natural upgrade from Mei and Caper. He does very good AoE arts damage and is a very important operator if you're trying to build stacks for Swift. The main reason why he doesn't go into S tier is mainly the fact that if you don't have Warfarin or Cruise, his stack generation actually isn't that great, only giving you +4 to whatever tag that he has at the end of every round. The other problem that he also has is that the competition in the tier 4 shop is quite fierce, and sometimes you might not want to grab Leonhard at all. Otherwise, he's still a very strong operator to grab, and there's not really much that can go wrong if you do grab him. Next up, Mulberry. She goes into situational niche. Again, Wandering Megs are really good, and she's probably your main healer if you're trying to build for Yen teams. But she's really only usable in Yen teams and nowhere else, even though that she has the A tag. Next up, ooh boy, this is gonna be a doozy. Mountain. He goes into situational niche. I've already talked about you should always try to activate the investor tag if it isn't banned. Now, let's talk about should you go for 70 stacks of investor. Mountain is your main way of building up to 70 stacks with investor, but you can still use Lumen or skill 1 with Silver Ash plus Warfarin, but both of those options are kinda cope in the first place. But back to the question of whether or not should you build up to 70 stacks with investor. My answer is a 100% no. There's a lot of problems when trying to get to 70 stacks with investor. First off, you need Mountain, obviously, and you still need either Silver Ash or Jessica Alter in order to activate the investor tag just so that you can start building stacks for it. The other problem is that you need to deploy Mountain, who isn't really that great, for who knows how many rounds. Maybe you need like 3 rounds, maybe 5, maybe even 6, just to even get to 70 stacks. This is basically like the main problem when trying to build up to 70 stacks with investor. It requires way too much luck just for it to work. You need to get Mountain, obviously. You need to get the investor tag early just to start building stacks for it. You hopefully want a upgraded Mountain and also a Saria just so that you can speed up the stack generation process. And you also need to make sure that you have the defense to handle all the enemies that are coming at you, which isn't going to happen about like 90% of the time. Alright, next up, Sancta Mixparato. He goes into situational good. Old Grandpa here is actually really good, especially if you need a defender, and if you're trying to go for locked-around teams, he's your main magnet for the corrosion boss as well. Him having high defense while also having the fortress tag can allow you to basically put him outside of the locked-around teams, but obviously you do kind of need the fortress tag in order for this to work. As for his skills, I generally prefer skill 3 a lot more as it increases his defense by a lot and makes him a lot more tankier, but you can also run skill 2 if you're worried about the fact that you only have Insider as your main way to generate stacks for Laterano. Grandpa also has a additional utility where if you upgrade him, he can reveal invisible enemies, so he is also great there. Next up, Texas Alter. She goes into situational niche. Again, raid tag, not that surprising. The main thing that Texas Alter really has for her is the fact that she kinda doesn't need the resilient tag, thanks to the fact that her ability does reduce her deployment time, and also the fact that her stun is probably the main thing that you're trying to use her for. She does have the Agile tag, but if you're using Texas to activate the Agile tag, then something is probably already wrong. Next up, Permanix. She easily goes into situational good. Finally, a way to generate K-Rock stacks during combat. But seriously, both her and Silver Ash are really important if you're trying to build stacks for K-Rock, as both of them are your main ways to do so. Not much to really talk about her other than the fact that she's just an important stack generator for K-Rock teams. Next up, Mizuki. He goes into situational niche, which isn't surprising given the fact that he's an Aegir operator. He's mainly in this tier because he does have a spammable skill 1, so that allows him to synergize with Warframe. But if you're trying to do that, you should just be using Leonhardt in the first place. His damage is alright, but nothing really that notable. Next up, Vulpes or Ingrid. She easily goes into situational good. Despite having the raid tag, she's actually really good, largely because of the fact that she is able to generate stacks for Swift. The great thing about Vulpes is that as long as she's able to activate the SP refund at least like once or twice consecutively, she is actually a really good lane holder operator. The other thing is that she gives +8 to Swift and Raid whenever you obtain her. That's a lot, especially if you can activate the investor tag, so that in of itself makes her a really good stack generator for Swift tag. Anyways, finally at the end of tier 4, we have Genosis. He easily goes into the A tier. Genosis is all about freezing for K-Direct teams, but more importantly, he is a stack generator for the Agile tag. He's very usable outside of K-Direct teams, especially if you have lots amount of Agile or Swift stacks, so he can easily freeze like all the enemies within his range. Not much can really go wrong if you pick Genosis, as he's a very natural upgrade to Mechanist, just like Leonhardt to Mei and Caper. And with that, we are finally done with the tier 4 shop. Tier 4 is when the floodgates start to open and you are able to just go into whatever build that you want. So I highly recommend that you try to get to tier 4 as soon as you can, as there's a lot of strong operators in this. And with that, we are now moving on to the tier 5 shop. In tier 5, getting any of the broken stack generators early is sometimes a lot better than getting a full squad of tier 4 units or lower, except for Warframe. So let's get right into it. Alright, let's get this one out of the way. Blaze Altar. She goes into A tier. The main great thing about Blaze Altar is that you can get her extremely early, like round 5 levels of early. But the main problem that Blaze Altar really has is that depending on which skills that you use, her performance can be quite shaky. If you are using skill 2, then that is her most consistent skill. She's gonna be able to handle any sort of enemy waves before the boss, but at the cost of the fact that her damage ceiling is gonna be a lot lower. In comparison to skill 3, which is a lot more volatile in terms of her performance. If you are using skill 3, then you are banking everything on getting the Fire Hammer early. If you get it, then her performance will be much better than skill 2, but if you didn't get it, then I wouldn't say that she becomes unusable, but more the fact that you will feel her performance drop by a whole lot. So to cap things off with Blaze Altar, pick skill 2 if you want better consistency, and pick skill 3 if you want the better burst potential. Now then, let's talk about the hang chads and seltzers of Stronghold Protocol, namely Civilized Eterna, Saria, Philopsis, Suzerain, and Roll Salt. They are never going to be picked outside of their very specific situation, so we're going to be ranking them based on that. Starting off with Civilized Eterna, she goes into situational good. If the operator in front of her has the during combat condition, then whenever they generate a stack, they will also gain +1 or +2 stack. She's best paired up with Execute Altar, Passenger, Silver Ash, and surprisingly whoever Warframe targets as well. She actually has quite a lot of use cases, but she isn't required if you're trying to go for those extremely high numbers. As for skills, it really doesn't matter if you're using skill 2 or skill 3, but personally I pick skill 3 a lot more because I don't want Execute Altar to get one shot. Next up, Suzerain. She goes into situation good. She will mainly be targeting Ethan, but if you still need some Swift stacks, then she can also target Bulbous as well. One more thing to note is that if you have the Investor tag activated, and Suzerain will also get that effect as well. But otherwise, she's mainly used for skill tree just to sync up the initial waves of enemies with the later ones. Plus, her damage champ is also pretty good as well. Alright, next up, Saria. She goes into situational good as well. She's mainly used in Victoria and Yen teams, as well as helping you get to 70 stacks of Investor as well. But otherwise, Saria is just Suzerain light. Nothing much to really say about her. Next up, Philopsis. She goes into situational niche. Her main targets are Gladia, Yu, and Pepe. Two of which are in a higher shop level than her, so that's not great. And the other one is only usable in Aegir teams. And if you still haven't realized, I do not like Aegir teams. So Philopsis is really hampered down by her use case. The only saving grace that she has over Roll Salt is that she has the Agile tag, and that's really all there is to it. Speaking of Roll Salt, let's talk about her. She goes into absolute trash. Her ability is, when sold, instantly trigger the operator that has the end of shop condition, prioritizing the one that is on the top right. Her use cases is much better than Philopsis and can sometimes be better than Saria because she doesn't take up a deployment slot. But she's absolutely terrible when deployed, and she costs way too much gold just to re-trigger an operator ability once. Which is why HG decided to bump her down into the level 4 shop and make her available in every single run in the next season, which inadvertently makes her into a god. But we'll get to that when we get to that. Alright, next up, Execute Alter. I'm gonna save my bashing for him later, but he easily goes into S tier. Under the right circumstances, and if you have a good amount of agile stacks, Execute Alter can basically go from 0 to 100 in a single round. He's by far the best stack generator and value generator operator in the entire game. A lot of people really glaze Execute Alter as the best unit in the entire game mode, but a lot of them also are willing to overlook his problems as well. Namely the fact that he needs a lot more setup just to be good in comparison to someone like Passenger who can just be deployed immediately and get results. FedEx, regardless of whether or not you're going for Laterano or not, needs a lot of agile stacks just to be good. On top of that, he also needs to go up against like the right enemies. If he ever goes up against like any flying enemies at all, he just immediately becomes useless. And even then, he wants to go up against like tanky enemies, that way he can generate those stacks. But at the same time, he doesn't want to go up against enemies that do too much damage, otherwise he just gets one shot. You can give him like certain equipment just to help offset some of his weaknesses, but it doesn't alleviate the fact that he needs a lot more prep work than most of the other stack generators just to be good. And finally, his skills. Just use skill 2, don't use skill 3. It takes way too long to activate and way too long to unload all of his ammo. Not to mention the fact that skill 3 can kill enemies a lot faster, which you don't want with him. Alright, next up, Jessica Alter. She goes into A tier. I don't really have anything bad to say about Jessica. She's just solid all around. She has decent stats and an alright secondary tag with Investor, so that's already great. And her ability is also pretty good as well, giving you one random equipment at the start of every round. Nothing bad to really say about Jessica. Alright, next up, Passenger. This one's a obvious S tier. You won't find anyone complaining about where Passenger should be in the meta. To sum up Passenger really quickly, he's just FedEx, but for Sargon and Precision teams, and he doesn't need Batman levels of prep time in comparison with FedEx. The only condition that Passenger has is that he needs 3 operators in the same role as him, which isn't that hard to achieve. As for his skills, you're only using skill 1, it's his lowest SP skill, and he doesn't need high amounts of Swift stacks in order for him to be good. He's great right out the get-go. Alright, next up, Lin. She goes into situation good. If you're going for Yen teams, then Lin is absolutely required if you're trying to build stacks for them. But otherwise, if you're trying to go for agile stacks, then she's your third option after Science Alter and Wolfrin, because her condition of needing you to buy operators just to get stacks is not that great, especially if you don't have a lot of money. But otherwise, a very good stack generator for Yen and a very important AoE operator for Yen teams as well. Alright, next up, Opianus. He goes into situational niche. I mean, do I need to say anything more about Opianus? An Aegir operator without anything else to him other than being a glorified stat stick. Not much I need to say about him. Next up, Spectre Alter. Also going to situational niche. While she does have a little bit more use cases than your average Aegir operator, as she's able to generate stacks for the Aegir tag and also the Indomitable tag, she doesn't really have anything else going for her other than very good stack generation. Next up, Suitor. Yeah, this isn't surprising at all, she's really bad. Being a pure raid operator as well as not having very good stack generation for it, it's not surprising that Suitor is this low in the tier list. The only thing that Suitor really has in comparison to everyone else in the same tier is that she can actually do damage if you still need it. Torrens Alter. He goes into A tier. I mean, what is there to really say about Torrens? He can heal, he can drop your frames, he can do damage, and he can also provide some stack generation as well. The only real downside that he has is his stack generation isn't that high, and that's really all there is to it. Next up, Typhon. She is a little bit of an interesting case. Initially, I actually rated her extremely low, somewhere around situation good or situation niche. But after a little bit more testing, I will actually say that she goes into A tier. Like any newcomers, like first impression of Typhon will probably be very bad because she couldn't generate any stacks, nor can she like generate any value. But if you play around with her a little bit more, you realize that she's there to increase your team's damage. Either through her own personal damage or to activate precision, agile, or just both of those tags at the same time. While also ensuring that you don't need the 6-man buff of whatever faction that you're using, so you can greed a little bit more by trying to farm some foresight stacks. Next up, Silver Ash. He goes into situation good. He isn't really bad per se, he's still pretty good if you need Invis Reveal, high damage, or you still need to activate the Investor tag, but outside of Kajak teams, he doesn't really hold his ground against any of the A tier operators, so that's why I'm putting him in situation good. Next up, Zola. He goes into situation niche. Probably the most forgettable Yen operator in this game mode. Like outside of his niche of doing high damage and potentially skill tree spam, he doesn't really do a whole lot of anything else. His stack generation just gets outclassed by Lin and Wan Qing, even if he gets a chance to do his skill tree spam. Next up, Gladia. Not surprising at all. Again, having only the Aegir tag hurts her placement a lot, but she does have some value generation where she's able to give you either a Underflow, Spectre, or Skadi at the start of every round. And with that, that's fine all the level 5 shop operators rank. To recap, all the broken operators are either in this tier or the one after, so I highly recommend that you try to get to tier 5 as soon as you can, and also save your upgrades for this tier as well. And with that, we're nearing the end. Let's get right into the tier 6 shop. In the tier 6 shop, if the operator is not compatible with your team or doesn't provide any sort of value generation, they are not going to get picked. Starting off with Silence Altar, this one's an obvious S tier. She's by far the best stack generator for Agile tag in the entire game, as well as being a very good tier 6 healer as well. Being able to be slotted into any team just makes her really good. Alright, next up, Lumen. Initially, I actually rated him pretty low in situational niche, but after a couple more testings in Season 2, I would actually put him somewhere in situational good. His main value is that he can actually generate quite a lot of secondary tags, i.e. like Foresight, Marvel, Investor, and Swift tags. Because all these tags don't really have a lot of operators that can generate those stacks, so Lumen can actually function as a secondary stack generator for them. Next up, Aya Alter. She goes into A tier. I'll be honest, she's not really here for stack generation, she's mainly here just to heal off elemental damage. Which 3 of the bosses have them, and soon to be 4 with Phantom in Season 2. Next up, Mumu. She is kinda like Blaze where she needs a tier of her own. Her ranking is entirely dependent on how important her equipment is to your current team. For those that don't know, when you obtain Mumu, she'll give you a Morph Ball. This equipment will allow an operator to have an additional tag depending on what their second equipment is. As an example, if you gave Typhon both the Morph Ball and the K-Drag Eyes, she'll then have the K-Drag tag. This can be very helpful for other operators that are extremely good, but it's only locked to certain teams. However, the value of the Morph Ball is entirely dependent on whether or not do you get the right second equipment in the first place. So even though that you should always try to get Mumu if you find her, you are not always guaranteed to have value because of the shop RNG. That's why she goes into a tier of her own. Alright, next up, Deacon Breacher. She goes into situational niche. This isn't really all that surprising given the fact that she's meant to be the DPS of K-Drag teams, but she needs the Swift tag in order for her to work. Next up, Golden Glow. She goes into situational good. She's really only usable in Victoria teams, but if you are able to give her the right equipment, she basically becomes a global damage monster, which is very, very good. Next up, Exia Alter. She goes into A tier. I mean, what's there to not love about her? She does a lot of good damage and can give you 2 gold whenever you obtain her, as well as being nigh unkillable. I guess the only real problem that she has is that she doesn't generate stacks by herself and she doesn't have any secondary tags. But other than that, solid operator. Next up, Ifrit. She goes into situational niche. Her ability is the opposite of Lumen, where instead of giving stacks depending on the operators in the bench, she is giving stacks depending on how many operators are in front of her. She joins way too late. Wherever you deploy in front of her is very likely to be a very good stack generator, so you don't really need Ifrit in the first place unless you're using her just like Lumen. Next up, Lemwin. She goes into A tier. She's a decent stack generator with very large range as well as good damage. But the main thing that holds her back a lot, and this is also like a good time to talk about the Laterano strategy. If you gotten her extremely early and without any Laterano stacks, it is very, very hard for Lemwin to actually generate stacks at all because she needs to spend 10 bullets. Keep in mind that her skill tree only has 5 bullets, so she needs to use her skill twice in order to at least proc her ability once. And a lot of people, including me, forget about this, is that she needs 2 other operators in the same row as her just for her ability to activate. And because of her large range, it is very likely for you to place her by herself. Next up, Necras. She goes into absolute trash. She and Ifrit basically suffers the same exact problem where they both join way too late with way too little stack generation as well. Not to mention she does way too little damage as well, so that makes her really bad. Next up, Narantuya. She goes into situational niche. I mean, why use her when you have Pepe and literally anyone else that has a secondary tag? The only good thing I have to say is that if you don't have Pepe, then she can definitely hold her own weight, but if you do, there's no reason to use her. Speaking of Pepe, let's talk about her. She easily goes into S tier. If you have a lot of agile stacks, then Pepe can basically perma-stun the entire map, and if you're going for Sargon, then she can do a lot of damage on top of that. Not to mention, she's also a very good value generator as well, where she's able to give you lucky coins that can give you 1 to 6 gold every time you use them. It's a good thing that they nerfed that in the next season, but otherwise she's easily an S tier unit. Next up, Sculptor. I mean, what do you expect? It's another Aegir operator without secondary tags. She's meant to be a support operator, but I've never used her. Even in Season 2, where Aegir teams got better, I still have never really used Sculptor. Next up, Vina Victoria, or Siege Altar. She goes into situational good. I mean, what can I say? She's just a spruced up version of Haiti, and that's all you really need to know. She can also generate stacks for Marvel, but I don't think I've ever seen anyone actually try to do that. Next up, Mudrock. She goes into absolute trash. I don't think I've ever seen anyone unironically use Mudrock. Her tags really hold her back a whole lot because they don't synergize with any other faction besides Aegir teams, and you already know how much I don't like Aegir teams. Not to mention, Mudrock is also another case of too little too late, where she doesn't really provide anything more. Finally, the last operator in the tier 6 shop, we have Yu. Goes into A tier. His value of giving you a random operator of whatever your team is really good. There's also the fact that with skill tree, he's able to support your entire team by allowing them to do burn damage, as well as having the potential to activate the Fortress tag, allowing your entire team to survive a little bit longer. And with that, that's fine all the tier 6 operators ranked. As a reminder for tier 6, any operator that doesn't fit with your current team is not going to get picked. Only pick the ones that can generate value. And now let's get right into the bonus operators. With the bonus operators, you're generally just picking them because you like them, or they do a lot of damage, CC, or just both. So let's get right into it. This will be a quick one. Starting off with the reserve operator that you can only attain if you pick the Pith strategy. He goes into situational good. He's very good during the early to mid game, where getting a nervous impairment proc would basically lead to an instant kill. Not to mention, his ability to basically synergize with any team is also very helpful, and it also makes the Aegir team a lot more tolerable during the early game. Next up, Ascalon. She goes into S tier. Basically, she's even, but she does more damage and better CC. And also a secret member of the K-Jock team. Next up, Reed Alter. She goes into situational good. Even though the game doesn't display it, she's considered a Victorian operator, so she's able to get their buffs. Also, being a incantation medic also helps her out a whole lot. Next up, Tragodia. He goes into A tier. I mean, he does very good CC thanks to skill 2 and skill 3, so it's not that surprising. Next up, Hoshiguma Alter. She goes into absolute trash. Her skill tree sucks. Not being able to activate Undying reliably hurts her a whole lot. Next up, Asajin Alter. She goes in A tier. I'm very biased for her. I think her skill 2 is very good CC. Couple that with agile stacks, then she can basically perma-slow enemies. Next up, Paranix Alter. She goes in A tier. Basically, I consider her to be K-Drug's actual DPS operator, so that's why she goes into A tier. There are also some Mad-Dads that have done skill 1 and skill 2 with her, so there's also that as well. Next up, Horn. She goes in situational niche. While Horn does have like very good range and very high damage, the only problem with her is that she cannot have the precision buff, so that's why she goes into a situational niche. Next up, Haruka. She goes in situational niche. I didn't really get the chance to test Haruka out a whole lot, but my best guess is that she isn't really that good using skill 3, even with the precision buff. Hence her placement. Next up, Nymph. She goes into A tier. This one's another bias pick. I really like using her with 200 stacks of Swift. Next up, Logos. He goes in A tier. This one isn't all that surprising, being able to utilize the precision buff on top of his very high damage makes him very good. Next up, Sakiko. She goes into situational good. I mean, she does good damage, the only unfortunate thing is that she cannot get the precision buff. Next up, Silver Ash Alter. He goes into situational niche. He's mainly there just for his skills trees, fragility, so that's all there is to him. Next up, Wizardel. She goes in A tier. I mean, she's very similar to Logos in every aspect, other than the fact that she's able to benefit from the Laterano buff. Speaking of Lateranos, we have Virtuosa, who goes into absolute trash. You don't need any more Laterano operators, especially the ones that doesn't utilize the bullet mechanic. Not to mention, it's very hard to get both Virtuosa and Nymph together at the same time. And with that, that is finally all the operators in Stronghold Protocol Season 1 ranked. My overall thoughts on Season 1 is that precision teams really dominate the meta. It's really hard to use other teams without noticing the big drop off in power, so not using them can make the game extremely hard. Basically, look at like Aegir teams where they are really not able to utilize the precision tag. But overall, once you learn like the intricate mechanics of the game mode, you are able to just break the game in all sorts of ways, which is very fun. But anyways, if you made it to the end of the video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And let me know how would you rank every single operator. Do you agree or disagree with my ranking? And I'll see you all next time when I make the Season 2 tier list video and when I make the higher end level of how to master Stronghold Protocol, which hopefully should come out in a week or two. See you guys then.